Our story begins on the northern border of the CRA's kingdom, where an army is gathered before a castle. This is Duke Ellen, the lord of the northern border, and he seems shocked by something. The reason for his surprise is an approaching horde of fearsome undead. Bizarre creatures of all kinds make up this terrifying army. He realizes the number of enemies is immense, and that a poisonous fog is coming with them. Suddenly, one of his soldiers desperately yells for the Duke to look in a certain direction. Leading the army is the fearsome undead knight known as Durian. His strength was so great that not even 10 elite knights together could take him down. The terrified soldier says they don't stand a chance and suggests an immediate retreat, but the Duke refuses since the northern wall has already fallen and the nation would be done for. He then yells that they will fight, but something suddenly cuts him off mid-sentence. At high speed, a figure on horseback charges alone against the army. The soldier wonders who that crazy person is charging forward so recklessly. It's Lord Urin, Rox sent by the Southern Marquis 8 to aid in the battle. This is Urin Rox, our protagonist, and he prepares to fight using his daggers. However, his opponent is Durian, and everyone doubts he can do a thing. They think it's impossible for mere daggers to harm the undead knight. To them, the idea of taking down Durian with daggers is simply impossible. However, the protagonist charges forward and with a powerful blow sends Durian flying. To everyone's surprise, the undead knight starts to melt after the attack. Everyone wonders how that's possible. As Urin strikes a pose amidst the chaos, soon the undead struck by the daggers drop to the ground completely still. Then the creatures' bodies start to dissolve in purple flames and vanish. The enemies were taken down in a single blow, and they wonder if he's a saint. Hearing this, the protagonist just lets out a mocking laugh, finding the idea ridiculous. In truth, the reason for his strength is something else, and a system window appears. He gains experience from the defeated monsters and absorbs their toxins for himself. The story then goes back 6 months in time to show how it all began. Our protagonist suddenly wakes up very confused and with no idea where he is. He finds himself in a fancy room and a voice calling him. Young Master startles him. The young man is completely shocked by the situation he's now in. In front of him is a beautiful woman with white hair holding clothes and a sword. The lady asks if he's feeling all right, but Ur doesn't know what to say. Seeing his state, she says she will call for a priest and starts to leave the room. He tries to stop her, reaching out his hand so she won't leave the room. He wanted to ask a question, but the woman had already left without paying attention. Alone, he sits up in bed and keeps wondering where on earth he is. Suddenly, something catches his attention, and he quickly turns his head to the side. Looking at his reflection in the mirror, he's startled to see the body of a chubby boy. In despair, he wonders where his old body went and why he's turned into a little kid. He doesn't understand what's happening and wonders if this is all just a dream. So, Boy then thinks about going back to sleep to see if he'll wake up from all this madness. At that moment, an old man and a bearded man enter the room, calling him Young Master. The bearded man looks very angry while the old man holds the protagonist's hand to examine him. With a furious look, the man calls him a disgrace to the family and yells that he's finally awake. The boy is frightened by the scary old man, and the other man tries to calm things down. However, the bearded man just huffs angrily, crossing his arms and not paying much mind. The old man says that for someone who passed out, he isn't badly hurt and his mind seems stable. The bearded man turns his head and says that's a relief, as most of the injuries have healed, but he soon yells that it would have been better if the boy had been gone, leaving the kid confused. The man accuses him of doing something bad to his Fian, and the protagonist has no idea what he means. He continues his lecture saying the boy is already 19 years old and needs to grow up. His younger brother has already awakened his aura while he just gets bigger every day. The word kawa catches our protagonist's attention, leaving him very surprised. The man then orders that as soon as he recovers, he must go and properly apologize to her. Yurin is confused and wonders who the man is talking about right now. He turns and yells that it's for his fiancée, Ilya, and that he's finished if she doesn't forgive him. The name Ilya sounds familiar to our hero, who nods his head in fear. The man tells him not to bring any more shame to the Rox family and then yells the name Yurin. Hearing that name, the boy is completely in shock and starts to break out in a cold sweat. In total disbelief, he wonders if he is really Yurin Rox now. He then looks at the bearded man and realizes who he truly is. The boy recognizes him as Marcus Willington Rox, which makes the man very angry. The Marquis is furious at being called by his name so disrespectfully. Without a second thought, he lands a heavy punch on his son's face for his audacity. The impact of the blow is so strong that the boy's face gets all distorted. He flies across the room while the others try to calm down the enraged Marquis lying on the floor. He can't believe that this is really happening. The protagonist desperately wishes that this is all just a bad dream. Suddenly, he wakes up panting in bed and sees the white-haired woman again. In a cold sweat, he wonders why he still hasn't woken up from this nightmare. The white-haired lady then approaches and asks if he's finally awake. The boy recognizes her and calls her by name Erin, leaving her a bit surprised. She confirms her name is Erin, and the protagonist is shocked that it's really her. In despair, he puts his hands on his head while the woman watches him, confused. He asks if the reason he's here is because he got beat up by Ilya and passed out. Erin looks at him with a strange expression and starts to say that wasn't quite it. The boy notices she's speaking very formally and gets suspicious. Ignoring it, he asks again if he was knocked out by Ilya, and she confirms it. She explains that he attacked Miss Ilya and she beat him up until he passed out. The boy throws himself onto the bed in frustration, unable to believe what he'd just heard. He goes into a total panic as he realizes he's in deep trouble now. Then it finally clicks, and he understands he's ended up inside the web novel he wrote. And the worst part is he wasn't reborn as the hero, but as the story's trashy villain. In denial, he grinds his teeth because he doesn't want to believe this is happening. Aaron calls him young master, but he can only think that this is impossible. Desperately, he yells that this isn't even a webtoon, but a novel. The white-haired woman is completely confused, not understanding what he's talking about. Tears stream from his eyes as he realizes he is now Yurin Rox. This character is a complete bum with no talent who never trains in his life. He just uses his family's name to get everything he wants. In the original story, he loses his fian to the true protagonist of the plot. Blind with rage, he attacks the hero, but ends up being completely defeated by him. The fight is quick, and he doesn't even have a chance to react to his opponent's moves. In the end, he meets a pathetic fate in some random dark alley in the city. Back in the present, he wonders how he's going to survive in this fantasy world. However, he remembers he has an advantage because he knows about the protagonist's items. Determined to change his fate, he jumps out of bed because he needs to prepare right away. However, his heavy body gets in the way and he nearly falls to the floor trying to move. Aaron helps him up and asks if he's okay, but the boy says he's not even close. Suddenly, it dawns on him and his eyes widen, not understanding what he just saw. Aaron scolds him, saying he should be resting, not pushing himself. The boy focuses because he can't quite see what just appeared. He then wonders if it appeared because he frowned earlier. A system window pops up in front of the lady who is completely confused. To his surprise, it's a status window showing Aaron's abilities. Seeing the young master's state, the white-haired woman asks what's wrong. He plays it off, saying he went a little crazy, and tells her to go about her duties. The lady then agrees with a smile on her face and gets ready to leave the room. The protagonist watches her in silence as she exits the chamber. He analyzes her stats and remembers that Aaron was stronger than regular knights. However, something catches his eye, and he sees that her affection for him is at 0. Confused, he wonders if this has turned into a dating sim by any chance. He remembers the games he used to play and questions this world's setup. Alone in the room, the boy is lost in thought as the door closes. He reflects that at least the affection isn't negative considering the old urine, but he soon shakes his head and runs towards a mirror in the room. Standing in front of the object, he stares intently at his own reflection. His gaze is one of pure determination as he prepares to do something. And to his surprise, a status window appears before him, showing his data. His stats show morbid obesity creator's eye and the locked poison arts. He focuses on a specific skill that catches his attention at the moment. He recognizes the skill from a Wuku webtoon he really liked. In his past life, he adored the heroine of that story for being very attractive. The martial art of poison and hidden weapons was that character's specialty. The boy's confused by the mix of elements in this world, but soon gets an idea. He realizes that if he can learn this martial art, he'll have a chance to survive. This art belongs to a Sichuan clan that specializes in poisons and assassination. He wonders why a Chinese clan would be in a medieval fantasy world, but with a wicked smile, he thinks he might be able to unlock this skill for himself. Meanwhile, the Marquise is in another room talking with someone important. He seems to be waiting for news about his son with a serious expression. He asks Aaron if urine is up yet, and she confirms he woke up a little while ago. The father then asks how his son is doing, and the lady replies that he still doesn't seem well. She mentions that he stumbled while trying to get up, and his body seems weak. The Marquis gets a little annoyed because the priest said the injuries weren't serious. He asks if she noticed anything strange about the young master's behavior. Aaron comments that he would normally throw a fit when told to go apologize. The father thinks his personality hasn't changed, and that he's just dazed. He believes that by the next day, Urine will already be plotting his revenge against Ilya. The Marquis lets out a mocking laugh and turns his back to the woman. He says that even he, his father, has given up on his son and asks why she still believes in him. The man feels bad for her and says he should have let her alive as a knight. He laments how hard it must be for her, but the lady tries to say something. Aaron then reveals that the young master seemed different today somehow. The scene shifts to outside the mansion, and a voice asks what he's going to do. Ur tells Aaron he wants to exercise and asks her to take him to the training grounds. The white-haired woman is completely shocked and asks if he wants to train now. The boy nods his head and asks if there's any problem with his request. He thinks that his creator's eye lets him see stats, but he doesn't know how to unlock the art. As he walks, he decides to exercise to figure out a way to get stronger. But the mansion's garden is huge, and he's already exhausted from walking so much. He remembers that trying to train in his room only makes him want to go back to bed. As they pass by some servants, they greet them very nervously and with fear. The protagonist notices that every servant he meets has the same reaction. A maid status window shows that her affinity for him is negative. Next, a butler's appears, and the level of aversion is even higher. Several other windows pop up, showing that everyone there either hates or dislikes him. He then thinks that he can't blame them as the old Urine was a complete jerk. Tired of walking, he stops and asks breathlessly if they're there yet. Aaron says they're almost there and explains that this is the third training ground. As they approach the gate, a man with white hair appears. Suddenly, his affinity pops up and shows a desire to get rid of the boy. The status window reveals the man's name is Rayon, a swordsman. The man turns around and in a sarcastic tone calls him young master. With a scary smile, he asks what brings him to the training grounds. The protagonist points at him in shock as he recognizes the name Ria. Rhea smiles and says it's an honor that the young master still remembers him. The boy gets nervous looking at the man's sword and agrees, stammering. He then turns to Aaron and quickly whispers something in her ear. Yor asks if something happened between him and that man in the past. The lady questions if he doesn't remember, but the protagonist shakes his head no. She tells him that years ago the Mark was forced him to train and called for Rhea. Aaron explains that the old Urin marked Rhea's face with a sword while laughing. The white-haired man stands still while the protagonist is left speechless. Rhea shoots a deadly glare in the boy's direction, who shivers with fear. Urin finally understands that the previous owner of this body was beyond saving. Scared, he tells Aaron they better get out of there right now. The boy asks if there's another training ground he can use by himself. She replies that there's a fourth ground, but it's far and poorly equipped for use. Yor gets excited and says the place is perfect for him to start losing weight. Aaron is surprised by his determination, but agrees to take him there. They arrive at the fourth training ground, which is a very large and empty place. The boy looks around in silence, observing the place carefully. He sees a table with throwing weapons and remembers the Tang clan specialty. The boy gets a focused look as if he just had an idea. Thinking of a possibility, he reaches out his hand to grab one of the daggers. The scene shows the vastness of the training ground as he gets ready. In the background, there are some wooden targets for practicing throwing weapons. The protagonist then picks up one of the daggers and prepares to throw it. With all his might, he throws the weapon toward the wooden target. The dagger flies quickly through the air in a slightly crooked path. However, it misses the target by a lot and ends up falling weakly to the ground. With a blank face, he thinks he could have unlocked the skill just like that. Embarrassed, he turns to Aaron, who is watching him with her arms crossed. He tries to play it off with a laugh, saying it was just for fun. The lady suggests he should focus on building stamina by running around the area. He tells her to train however she wants and starts running around the field alone. The boy starts doing laps around the training ground to improve his physical shape. Aaron is shocked to see that Urin has actually started training for real. The Marquis finds the situation strange, but wonders how long it will last. 3 weeks later, he notices that Yuri hasn't missed a single training session. Aaron also comments that the boy has lost a lot of weight and his appearance has changed. With a proud smile, the father praises his son as if he always believed in him. He realizes that without the extra weight, the boy is actually quite handsome and charming. The Mark then wonders if his son has finally matured for real. The scene shows the large and luxurious Rox family mansion at dusk. In his room, Yor looks at himself in the mirror and notices he's lost a lot of weight. However, he still hasn't managed to unlock the Tanglin skill. He decides to give himself 1 month to do it. And if it doesn't work, he'll steal something from the hero. Just then, Aaron arrives with dinner, and he thanks her politely. The dish is a nutritious soup that helps burn fat and build muscle. The boy complains because it's the same soup as always and makes a disgusted face. The white-haired lady asks if he's gotten tired of eating the same thing. He replies, yes, because he's been eating it for 3 weeks straight. She then questions him about his true goal with all this effort. Yor states with conviction that his greatest desire is to become a knight. Aaron explains that even the mighty Marquis eats the soup after training hard. She tells him to stop complaining and eat his nutritious soup. With little choice, the boy agrees with a mischievous look on his face. He mentally grumbles about this old custom while Aaron watches him. But since the soup helped him lose weight, he decides to put up with it for now. The soup has a very strange appearance with lots of weird chunks in it. Without complaining further, the boy starts to eat the soup obediently. However, upon swallowing the first spoonful, he notices something different. Today's soup tastes a little different than usual, and he finds it strange. Suddenly, a mysterious purple aura starts to emanate from his body. A system window then appears, warning him that he has ingested poison. Completely shocked, the protagonist can't believe what he just read. But right after, another window pops up with a condition to unlock the art. To his surprise, the Tanglin's skill has finally been unlocked. A malicious grin then appears on his face as he realizes the opportunity. Meanwhile, the Marquis remains proud of his son's dedication. He thinks the boy has become handsome after losing weight and is changing. The father wonders if he is finally becoming a responsible adult. Back in the present, the Marquis hears a knock on the door and says to come in. A red-haired woman enters with a tray, and he calls her my wife. This is Ka, the Marquis' second wife and the protagonist's stepmother. She asks what he was looking at, and he says it was just the garden. The man then compliments her skills as the garden is very beautiful. The woman approaches her husband and hugs him affectionately from behind. She then asks when he will choose Colin as his official heir with a confident smile. She says it would be better to do it soon. Kada continues trying to convince the Marquis to make a quick decision. He looks thoughtful for a moment and calls her name seriously. The man says the decision might take a little more time, which irritates her. She reminds him that he promised to name Colin as the heir this month. The Marquis explains that Urin seems to have come to his senses lately. He says, the boy is the eldest son and could become a good successor. Kina pretends to agree, saying she was worried but is now relieved. The father laughs and says that getting beat up by his Fian finally made the boy wake up. The stepmother then asks what he will do about the succession with a smile. He replies that Urin has only been training for 3 weeks and it's better to wait. The Marquis promises that if his son goes back to his old ways, he will give the title to Colin. The woman then says her goodbyes and says she'll wait for him in her room. Alone in the hallway, she stops in front of a door with a dark look. Her face contours with rage and she grinds her teeth in pure frustration. With clenched fists, she swears that Euron will regret this. Back in the protagonist room, a window announces that the skill has been released. The boy is completely surprised by the notification that suddenly appeared. He realizes the condition to unlock the art was to ingest poison. The boy finds the idea absurd, but now it all makes sense to him. Urin then remembers something important about the soup he was eating. He opens the item status window to check a crucial piece of information. The boy notices an icon in the description and realizes there's more text below. Looking at the icon, he discovers he can scroll the window down. The system then reveals that one of the herbs in the soup has a mild toxin. Aaron watches him with a questioning look, not understanding his reaction. The lady asks if he's not going to eat, and the boy is startled by the question. He